Take a look here. This shows the income for every American household in 2020, with the poorest households on the left and the richest households on the right. Here is the poverty line. That's the minimum amount of money a household needs to buy the most basic food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. As you can see, the poorest Americans have very little, and the richest Americans have lots and lots of money. Every household in this left part of the chart lives below the poverty line. This represents nearly 40 million Americans. The gap between their current income and the poverty line is about $155 billion according to U.S. Census data. If we have every American household a seed money grant equal to the poverty line, we'd wipe out poverty completely. And we'd be stuck with a $2.3 trillion bill. That's not very efficient. So we add in a repayment scheme so that everyone who earns well above the poverty line pays back their seed money. With that adjustment, the price of ending poverty drops all the way down to $200 billion. We don't want to print money and cause inflation. We have to pay our $200 billion bill. We can do that with a minor tax adjustment. Or if we don't want to tax the rich, we can take up to half of the $400 billion we already spend on programs like welfare, food stamps, and unemployment, and use that to pay our bills. And voila, no more poverty. Every single American household is now at or above the poverty line. We didn't print any new money and therefore didn't cause any inflation. We just ended poverty, and we did it without adding to the budget deficit. The current cost of childhood poverty alone to U.S. taxpayers is an estimated $1 trillion a year. That's money spent on health care, our criminal system, and foster care. Now that we have no more poverty, those costs disappear. A $200 billion investment to save $1 trillion is a net savings of $800 billion a year. That's $8 trillion over a decade. We'd also prevent nearly 200,000 poverty-related deaths each year, and saving almost 2 million lives in a decade. We end poverty, save taxpayers trillions of dollars, and saving almost 2 million lives. Not bad. Over time, as more families spend their seed money at community stores and invest in their futures, we see incomes rise for the poorest Americans. They spend money in stores owned by middle-class Americans who spend in the stores owned by the wealthiest Americans. The amount of households living in poverty gets smaller and smaller, so the cost of preventing poverty goes down and down. When you plant seeds at the bottom, the fruits are shared all around. Everyone now has the peace of mind knowing that a medical emergency, death of a loved one, or lost job doesn't mean losing everything. They'll always have their seed money to help them when they hit hard times. No applications, no embarrassing lines, no conditions. Everyone here still has much, much less money than the richest Americans, but now they have hope. They have a chance. If they're smart with their seed money, they can feed their families, put a roof over their heads, and start to invest in a brighter future. This redistribution is so tiny, so much so that it's hard to see. But if we zoom in on the poorest Americans, we see that the Seed Money Act radically improves the lives of over 100 million poor and middle-class families and creates a more stable society for all of us. So now that you know how to end poverty and make trillions, ask yourself, which America do you want to live in?